Welcome to the Healthy Christian Podcast. This podcast is dedicated to empowering Christians to live a fulfilled life by integrating biblical principles with practical steps. Whether you're seeking to deepen your faith, enhance your physical health, or improve your overall well-being, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to the Healthy Christian Podcast. This is Season 3, Episode 2, and we've been talking about in this season how to be healthy mentally. Today in this episode, we're going to be diving in and talking about our perspective. That's right. How do we shift our perspective? Why is it important to have a different perspective and how it will benefit us? So let's dive in today. Have you ever seen the picture that went around on social media where it was a dress and everybody wanted to know what color the dress was? There's several pictures like this, and there's been pictures of shoes and different outfits, and everybody has a different perspective. Some people say the dress is blue, some say gold, some say that the picture's purple, and there was all these different debates on what color it really was. And people would argue over and over, no, I'm right. It's this color, it's that color, and it would start fights. And people were so passionate that the way they saw the picture was right. And no matter who was right, my encouragement for you today is there is a different way to view your situation and what you're going through. And you may not like the different viewpoint. You may like the way you view things, and that's quite frankly okay. But I want to encourage you today to know the different perspective, to understand the different viewpoints that you can see and address a situation, because there's different perspectives, different viewpoints. I know a lot of times as a pastor, I always tell people, hey, look, there's your story, there's their story, and then there's the way God sees it, right? So we need to understand there's multiple ways to view a situation and understand that it is helpful to see the way other people see it. There's a scripture that I feel like really helps us as we begin to talk about being healthy mentally is Philippians 4, and we've been reading in verse 7, but I want to kind of read right before it in verse 6. It says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your request be known to God. Then it says, and then the peace of God will be with you and surpass all your understanding. So wait a second. Right there, God is letting us know, hey, there's a different understanding, a different perspective that we could have, and we just don't see it. I mean, we have to be honest. We don't see the things in the ways that God sees it. His ways are greater than ours. And if we're going to trust God, we need his perspective in the way that he sees a situation. So the first thing we need to do is to understand and acknowledge there's a different perspective. If you're going through something and you're having a hard time overcoming it, you've got questions, maybe you want to change jobs, maybe there's a new path you want to take, and you're not quite sure, the first things to understand is maybe there's a different way to view your situation, a different way to view what you're going through. And have you asked anybody? Have you gotten a different perspective? The second point that you need to know is, hey, find a different perspective. Find somebody that you trust in your life to give you a different viewpoint. And I just want to encourage you here is people love to give you their thoughts and their perspective. And you know this to be true because, hey, we can always find the flaws in other people and in other things. When you watch a movie, when you hear other people speak, you're always like, oh, they could have done it this way, or I would have liked this way better. Hey, we're really good at viewing things from a different perspective than how other people may be seeing, communicating it. So if we're really good at that, hey, we want to invite that in to our life because that is gold, a different perspective, helping and finding people that are going to help you have a different perspective. That person is so valuable. Now, I'm not talking about finding someone that's going to give you harsh feedback or tell you the truth, right, in harsh ways. And I don't want you to be like that either. We want to be able to give a different perspective and hand that over to that person and allow them to process it and walk it out. It gives us a lot of freedom when we can just say, hey, this is the way I see it, and almost not even give any advice. You see, a different perspective isn't always saying, hey, this is the way I would do it. It's really being what they would call the guide on the side, where it's like, hey, this is the way I'm seeing the situation play out, and maybe this is a different way of looking at it or approaching it. So my encouragement for you is to find somebody in your life. Maybe you don't have this person, but find somebody that you can talk to get a different perspective. I'm going to encourage you not to ask online or in social media for a different perspective, because people can just be harsh and give viewpoints that aren't even relevant to what you are going through. So find somebody that you have a relationship with. Doesn't have to be a best friend, but just find somebody that you're currently talking to, that maybe you talk to, that maybe they have wisdom in other areas than you do. That is a great person to ask for a different perspective. And you can have all different kinds of people in your life. Like for me, I have a different person that speaks into my life when it comes to my marriage, and a different person that speaks into my life for business things, a different person that helps me be a better pastor. All these different people speak into my life and give different perspectives on the different subject. So you don't have to have one person that's going to give you all this wisdom, and you don't have to feel the pressure for that either. Is if someone is wanting you to speak into your life or their life, you can easily just give your perspective and what you've seen and what you've walked through. So the next step from this podcast is to seek out a different perspective. Whatever it is that you're going through, whatever you may find yourself believing for, trying to overcome, find someone to give a different perspective. I know you got people in your life that you can ask and seek out to. And if you don't know even how to have a different perspective, begin to pay attention on how you're giving a different perspective to other people. Like I mentioned, a lot of times we are thinking through a different filter about other people all the time. So maybe you can be able to zoom out and give yourself a different perspective. Maybe get past the emotional side of it. Maybe picture yourself giving that advice to someone else if it wasn't you. I know a lot of times speakers will practice their message or their notes in front of a mirror, and this helps them get it out and talk. And you can essentially do the same thing with giving yourself a different perspective, is find some time to zoom out and to picture your situation in a different light and say, hey, if I knew somebody that was walking through this, what advice would I give them? Hey, that is a really helpful tool. And if nothing comes to mind and you're like, I tried that, I thought about that, this is when there's a great time to start bringing other people into your life to help give you a different perspective. I want to just free you up from feeling like you have to follow the advice or perspective that other people give. This is a trap sometimes when we ask people for feedback or we want their perspective. We can feel like, well, if I don't do it their way or if I don't do it how they said it, then I'm going to kind of feel guilty. So I'm not even going to ask. No, free yourself up from that. You want to be able to receive things and filter whether that needs to be applied in your life. We talked about this a little bit in the previous episode, is you need walls and barriers in your thinking to understand, what do I need to allow into my life? What is good wisdom and what is not? This is just a process that you're going to have to walk out. We don't always do it perfect. We all fall into the trap of having unhealthy thinking patterns sometimes and getting wrapped into our own thoughts. But it's really important that you are reaching out to people, but not feeling the pressure or obligation that you've got to follow the feedback and perspective that they have. Because remember, it is a perspective, but so is the way you're viewing it. You're viewing this situation that you're walking through currently through your own lens and own perspective. So there is a different way to view it. And I believe from my own experience, when I've zoomed out and I've gotten different perspectives, it's actually helped me have way more peace. And I believe this is what Philippians 4 is getting at, is God saying, hey, when you seek my perspective, when you understand that I have a greater way, that God is able to overcome anything, then it brings you peace and it brings you understanding that there may be other ways to accomplish what it is you're going through in your life. So I really hope that you find this encouraging. Again, there's some other great books out there that you can begin to seek out and to get other perspectives and other thinking habits. So I want to challenge you to dive into some more resources on this subject and watch how when you change your perspective, it could change your life. When you change your thinking, it could change your entire life. Hope you find this encouraging, and I look forward to many more conversations that we're going to have about this in the future. Thank you for tuning in to the Healthy Christian Podcast. Now it's your turn to put these principles we've discussed into action. We'd love to hear how they've impacted you. Please rate, review, and share the podcast with others. Join us on social media to continue the conversation and share your insights. Until next time, stay healthy.